This is the 29th part in this series, and I don't know when we will end. I just put the numbers on there so that people can go back and reference it. And I have people asking me all the time, why is the calendar important? If you were with Noah and the ark was being loaded and you were late, would it matter? If you were the thief being executed on the cross with our Messiah, and the Messiah makes a statement, "This day shalt thou be with me in paradise," and yet you're confused about what the time is. Because I'm going to prove to you that at that particular moment in history, 4 calendars were being kept simultaneously. 4 calendars. And we say those things really don't matter. But if you understand the purpose of the calendar, the sole purpose of the calendar is for gestational reproduction. It was contrived, if you will, by our king, our creator, for the sole purpose of being intimate with his bride and then being able to implement his seed within her at her optimum time for ovulation. The Western world has lost pretty much all understanding of that. The Western world does not really understand that there are, and hopefully this doesn't get too risque for some of you, but the Western world doesn't understand that there are timing methods that you can use as a husband and wife so that you can plan your family. Are you hearing me? If my timing is off, the intimate season has lost its purpose. Did you hear me? And if we do believe that our king is coming back, our king, our husband, the groom is coming back for a bride without spot or wrinkle, and we're supposed to meet with him at certain times in the days in front of us, especially when all of the known world is in abject confusion, and that season that we meet with him becomes a place of sanctuary, a place where we can be protected, secluded, if you will, have the instruction that we need, and then be able to receive his seed and reproduce sons of Elohim in the earth. If that's important to us, then I submit to you we need to know the calendar. We need to know what time it is. Well, you need to be preaching about getting saved and the salvation message. Listen to me. I know my audience. There are times when you need to spend your time sharing a salvific message, a redemption message with individuals who are not saved, and I understand that. That's the heart of the gospel message. But when you have a group of individuals that you know their lives and you know that the vast majority of them are in fact believers, then we need to be able to go a little bit deeper and help to educate, help to maturate, help to bring people to a place in their lives where they can stay saved. Hello? And so the premise of this teaching this afternoon is based on one thing: recognizing the genuine and the counterfeit. And we've been building momentum now for weeks. We've extracted data that was embedded within the Hebrew text, and let me just share this with you sort of as a qualifier for this teaching. You will not be able to hear, grasp, understand, or access what we're talking about this afternoon without you're going to be able to take it into the text of creation, which is the Hebrew language. The Hebrew text wholeheartedly confirms that the creation covenant calendar, which I am convinced starts at a dawn day and is a 360-day year. It begins its calculation, its inception takes place when we mark the shadow. The equinox the following day becomes the first day of the year. This chronology with a 360-day calendar, and I challenge you, if you know, and in fact, we're going to have someone locally come in the next few days that's going to be challenging us regarding the 360-day calendar, and we're putting together some questions to give to him so that we can see exactly what he thinks when he looks at these questions, because you cannot get around the truth. The truth will stand scrutiny. Your lie will struggle, okay? Every event, every date, every holy convocation that we have found is predicated upon a 360-day calendar. I don't care who, you cannot prove it otherwise. There's no other calendar out there. These dates follow the precedent that was set in Genesis chapter 1 forward, and yet they also correspond in very minute details with the things that are revealed in the prophetic works like Daniel, Ezekiel. Shepherd John and I, we've been both looking at Daniel and Ezekiel and their companion books to the the book of Revelation and the other gospel accounts. They all have the same prophetic patterns that we see demonstrated in the luminaries with the heavenly message that the luminaries also reveal. From a purely New Testament perspective, these dates, without doubt, confirm information surrounding not only the timing of both John the Baptist and Yeshua's birth. If you understand the Creator's covenant calendar, you will not have any more questions about, was he crucified on a Friday and then resurrected on a Sunday? How do I get Jonah's 3 days and 3 nights from Friday to Sunday morning? You see my point? There are so many questions that people have. What was that Tuesday evening meal that Yeshua celebrated with his Talmudim, his apostles, prior to the Passover the following day? If you don't understand the chronology here, you will not be able to put those into their specific place, okay? The circumstances that was recorded when he was 12 years old, you have to ask yourself, do you honestly think that the woman who was able to hear from Yahweh regarding being impregnated by the Ruach HaKodesh and that she would receive a son and she was to name that son Yeshua, do you honestly think that she would forget where he was at and leaving intentionally? Do you think that she was so scatterbrained that she decided, well, we're just going to take a vacation? And I've been on vacation before with children. Sometimes you wish you could leave them. You might as well say amen or oh me, it's still the truth. But if you go back and realize what was happening, she was keeping a different date for the calendar at that time than Yeshua, who was keeping his father's calendar. You can also understand the chronology of his 40-day season in the wilderness. What happened during his execution week? Why he was resurrected at a specific time as the first fruits offering, when he ascended into heaven, and much, much more. There are so many dates that are in the New Testament that are simultaneously in conjunction with what you can see from Genesis forward, that if you're not careful, you will just simply stop bothering trying to attempt to access the truth. And instead, you'll just be content to embrace the era of tradition. Why? Because it's too hard for most people. What's that have to do with salvation? What's the calendar have to do with salvation? Well, it's the blood of our Messiah, Yeshua, that gets you saved. If you don't understand when he's going to show up, just go back and look at Genesis chapter 3, when Adam and Eve were supposed to be there, when the voice walked in the garden at the dawning of the day. They missed the timing. With that said, the details of his crucifixion week, if you don't understand the genuine calendar, then yes, they are convoluted. There's a lot of questions, and there's people with answers for all of these convoluted ideas and traditions, but yet they can't really explain the truth of it. And if you don't understand that from a calendar's perspective, there were at least 4 distinct calendars being observed, 3 of which today, right now as we speak, are still being used by the counterfeiters to attempt to prove their respective calendar positions. Number 1, Shepherd John alluded to it, the Roman calendar. We call it the Gregorian calendar. Man, you need to just start going back and ask yourself, why does the Roman calendar have such influence? When you understand that Rome, Idumea, Edom, Esau, oh my goodness, then when you begin to connect the Roman calendar with Esau, now you can also understand that Esau's trying to counterfeit Jacob. Are you hearing me? And so now you can kind of get a little bit further understanding regarding the Roman calendar. It differs 6 hours from midnight, it's when they begin their reckoning, instead of the dawn day calendar. So that was your first one. The second one was the lunar solar calendar, evening to evening reckoning of the Jews, which was 12 full hours off. And finally, we had the third calendar that our Messiah kept. It was a creation covenant calendar of 360 days, and it's easy to prove. There's no others that can connect these dots like this 360-day calendar. If you add to those three, the fourth one, which I'm in agreement with Shepherd John, what I'm convinced is the most diabolical, and I'm going to tell you what I believe is going to happen on the horizon in the days ahead. This fourth calendar, which is being comprised of the Enoch-Zadok adherents, you're going to find in the days ahead, I believe that there's going to be a consortium of the leaders from the triad of the great religions. Judea, Judah, Islam, Catholicism. And I believe that they're going to come together. It would not surprise me if the Pope didn't make the announcement that the calendar that we've been keeping has been wrong. And they're going to do everything they can to establish a counterfeit in the face of what's being shown to you this day regarding a 360-day, dawn day start creation covenant calendar. And it's going to be set up to where it will fit within the framework of this coming third temple in order for this calendar, this 364-day calendar, this counterfeit, to be used to administer the holy convocations that will be in conjunction with this third temple that's coming. You can say, oh, you're really out on a limb or not. You mark it down. If it doesn't come true, then you can hold me accountable in the days ahead. So how do we uncover the author of these counterfeit calendars? The culprit that's been hidden among those false timetables and the one that's responsible to this day for their existence. And we understand that there are a lot of different entities, a lot of individuals, a lot of religions, a lot of powers out there that are keeping these calendars that are counterfeit. But ultimately, you understand that Lucifer, Hasatan's the author of it. He was the liar from the beginning. Amen? And we've uncovered the details of Lucifer's quest to subvert the plan of Elohim regarding the message that was written in the heavens. And you can see the details of his rebellion in Isaiah 14:3. How many of you have read Isaiah 14:3? I'm going to read this to you. And I want you to understand what's being shared here. Isaiah 14:13 is the end result of his actions. For you have said in your heart that you would ascend into heaven, and that you would exalt your throne above the stars of Elohim, and that you would sit upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. If you look closely, it's painfully evident that verse 13's declaration is a direct response to what had been written in verse 12. Verse 12 is a consequence of the declaration that he made in verse 13, and here's what it says. How are you fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How are you cut down to the ground, thou who didst weaken the nations? And so as a result of the fall, we find, and you see it highlighted in my notes up here, this particular phrase, thou art cut down. Cut down where? To the ground. I want you to pay attention to the phrase that's inside the quotation marks. Thou art cut down to the ground, especially in the Hebrew text. It's written in Hebrew, nigdata. The sentence structure tells us a future tense, you will or you shall be cut down. But I want you to pay attention to the letters that are found inside of this phrase, because it actually gives you something that's hidden within the normal sentence structure. Again, if you don't see it in the King James English, if you don't see it in the Hebrew language, you'll not understand it. The King James is set here to hide information from you, in my opinion. The secret message reveals two powerful root stems, neged, say that with me, neged, and ayat, or at. That Nun Gimel Dalet root of neged should be familiar to you, because it's first seen in Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, when it's inserted in the phrase when it's said regarding Adam that there is no helpmeet found for him. Did you hear what I just said? Now you found this phrase inside that edzer kenegdo. See it? Neged. And so now you have to ask yourself, if that is applied to the relationship of Lucifer, is it possible that prior to his fall that Lucifer could have actually held the role of helpmeet to Elohim at one point? Now don't go wild on me. Just think about that and hold on to it for a second. That root there, Nun Gimel Dalet, indicates preeminence, to show yourself or to put yourself in front of others, to be manifest. That second root, the ayin tav, gives us the idea of adapting time or adapting to a specific time to do something at the proper time, but it also can connote the idea of doing it in the form of vengement or punishment regarding a set time. And so now when you begin to see this and put it in its proper context, it actually is indicating that Lucifer's intent was to manifest himself at the set times. I will exalt my throne. I will sit in the mount of the congregation. That his intent was to manifest himself at the set times that he would later counterfeit. Now, we started off this talk this afternoon letting you understand that the sole purpose of the calendar is for reproduction. And so if he says that he is going to sit in the congregation of the Most High, then it's telling you just as plain as I can that his entire premise behind counterfeiting the calendar of creation was so that he could have intimacy with you instead of you having intimacy with the one who was supposed to show up at the divine appointments. Oh, I don't know if I believe that. Go back and read Genesis chapter 3. The serpent, the Nakash, showed up early. I believe that the Nakash showed up just about the hour just before the evening, because I believe that he was implementing or instituting the lunar solar evening to evening calendar. And that's why you find those, what happened in Genesis 3 down to around verse 8, Genesis 3 verse 1 through about verse 8. Seems like they're happening either late evening, late afternoon, or into the night, because it talks about the voice walking in the cool of the day coming to meet them. The coolest part of the day is at the dawn of the day. Do you see that? Now, in addition, if you look at that Dalet Ayin Tav root, say this word with me, Da'at. It's also found inside and first seen in Genesis chapter 2, verse 9 and verse 17, where Adam, now all of these are going to tie together. Adam is admonished to not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That word knowledge, da'at. This word, all you have to do is start taking some of this upon yourself to study to show yourself approved unto Yahweh, workmen that need not to be ashamed and rightly divided the word of truth. Go back and start doing some of these word studies yourself and take it back to the Hebrew language. If you look at this word da'at, this specific word has puzzled scholars for generations. So why is the writer choosing to use this particular Hebrew word? And I'm going to show you, because when you hear that word da'at, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, we automatically think of head knowledge, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, knowing right from wrong. But if you go back and dissect it, this root word carries with it the most powerful evidence of intimacy that can be found. It's frequently highlighted in the union between the husband and wife, just like you saw earlier in Edzer Kenegdo, where a helpmeet's needed. And so now you can see, if it's first used here to describe the relationship that had been available between Elohim and his original created beings, both, and some people will argue, I don't believe that happened physically. Well, let's just assume that it happened spiritually then. I believe if you do something in the spirit realm, that it will manifest itself in the natural, okay? In particular, we're going to focus on Lucifer here. And so what you begin to see is the seriousness of this definition, this word da'at, is exposing to you the seriousness of their crime, specifically Lucifer's crime, And it's alluding to the fact because it's all about the intimacy that should be found between a husband and a wife, the groom and his edzer kenegdo. Are you following me? And if I am trying for any way, in any fashion to compromise that encounter, compromise that relationship, then I am now guilty of adultery, whether it's spiritual or physical. And if you go back and understand from that biblical perspective, it becomes spiritual treason. Did you hear what I just said? Lucifer merits being thrown out of the heavens because he commits spiritual treason. In other words, spiritual treason is when you literally go in and you profane the holiest of holies. The marriage chamber is the holiest of holies. Okay? And so I want you to hold that now in the back of your mind, because I want to give you some information, hopefully, that will help you to understand why Lucifer is going to be judged. How many of you have heard that Lucifer is going to be kicked over into the bowels of hell in a lake that burns with fire and brimstone? Have you ever just stopped and asked yourself why? Have you ever had people tell you, I don't believe in a literal hell? Well, I'm going to show you that there has to be a literal hell, a literal place that burns with fire and brimstone, and it's because of the spiritual treason that Lucifer and the fallen ones engaged in, okay? Now, from what we've looked at thus far, it's, in my opinion, scripturally demonstrated that Lucifer held a unique office. Evidence suggests that as a representative of Elohim that he had to function in some sort of a priestly role. There, it's said in a couple of different places that he was in Eden, the garden of Elohim, that he walked up and down amongst the stones of fire, that he had on the holy breastplate, of which, or after which, the Levitical breastplate was made. Now, if that's the case, he's committed high treason, profaned the holiest of holies. I want to show you what was designated for any individual who did the same, engaging in physical or spiritual adultery. Leviticus 21 verse 9 talks about the daughter of a priest who would profane herself by committing whoredoms or adultery. What is to happen to her? She's to be burned with fire. Matthew 25:41, then shall he say also unto them on the left hand, depart from me, you cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. Did you hear that? Everlasting fire was originally prepared for Satan and his angels. There are going to be multitudes of men that are also going to be sent into that same place. I'm going to show you why men will be sent there. I'm also going to show you that our Messiah, Yeshua, paid the penalty of the adulterous bride. And so there's no reason for any man to go into the bowels of Sheol, or the bowels of hell. Amen? Revelation 20:10. And the devil who had deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are. And listen to this, and they shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. You have to understand, in order for them to receive this kind of judgment, this kind of punishment, it had to be something outside the norm. As far as sin, it's spiritual treason. And so these verses alone confirm the serious judgment regarding the offense of Lucifer, and that is what merited his being cast down to the ground. And Adam and Chava in Genesis chapter 3 also engage in spiritual treason. They commit adultery. Listen to me carefully. However, they are offered an alternative. And that alternative is our Messiah, Yeshua. And our Messiah, Yeshua, took the bitter waters of jealousy test that Numbers chapter 5 talks about, where it says that the accusations against him would be written on parchment. And then they would take wine and pour it across the parchment into a vase or a glass of some sort, and then you would be forced to drink that. And if you were guilty of adultery, once you drink it, your belly and your thigh would rot out. If you were not guilty, you would produce seed. Our Messiah, when he makes a statement in the garden, not my will, but yours be done. He's talking about letting this cup, what cup? This cup of bitter waters that is going to cause the nations to be judged for being spiritually adulterers, engaging in high treason, and because he drank it for us, and he's hung on a tree in scarlet robes, and he is pierced with a sword, which is another form of capital punishment that was reserved for a harlot caught in the public. So everything you see in that particular regard had to do with him taking that penalty on our behalf. Amen? Now I want you to keep that again framed in the back of your mind, because I want to go back and look at this word da'at. We're trying to help you understand the genuine versus the counterfeit. If you look at that word da'at and break the root stem of da'at apart, you have the dalet, which is a doorway. The doorway represents the threshold. And you're probably going to hear some things this afternoon that will take you outside your comfort zone. I again admonish you to go back and study for yourself. Don't just take my word for it. I might be wrong. I wouldn't be where I'm at this afternoon if I hadn't been wrong in the past. But I'm going to tell you something. If I'm wrong this afternoon, I've been studying. Did you hear what I just said? I didn't just take your word for it and was wrong in the process. Hello? I didn't take my grandma's word and wound up being wrong in the process. I've been studying this thing. And I'm willing to go back and examine the truth to find out if I've been wrong. I want to correct it. I want to be able to stand in front of Elohim and hear him say, well done, thou good and faithful servant. The dalet represents the threshold. It was the place of the altar. This dalet, this doorway, is an eternal portal allowing access, travel, a back and forth travel, in and out opportunity that was given creation at the set times. Where do the set times come from? Yahweh's calendar. Who administers the set time? I believe that Elohim originally set them in motion and then put Adam and Chava in the earth in order to administer the set times from their role as the Melchizedek priesthood. And I want to share something else with you right here. This will probably rub your fur backwards, but I want you to get it. Every set time, every holy convocation originally involved the placement of an altar. Now, from our Western mindset, we can't think of altars today without thinking of something that has to be sacrificed upon it. But that's not always the case as it regards the altar. So you have to go back and do some research and ask yourself, what purpose did the altar originally serve? Okay? And the ancient concept regarding the intent of the altar prior to the fall was one of a table. Can I just stop? Did y'all hear what I just said? Have you ever asked yourself why there has been such a drive, I'm going to make some folks mad, to do away with the family dining table? Families don't sit down together anymore. Families don't sit down and eat anymore. Families don't have a relationship around the dining table because we've lost the concept that that dining table was actually intended to be an altar. It was at the table where the husband and bride demonstrated their union, the joining of two families. The first altar was a table where Elohim created a place where his bride could come, listen to me carefully, and be conjoined with him. From the fall forward, the bride has been unclean. Listen to me carefully. I want you to get this. The bride's unclean and could never sit at that table again without someone dying in her stead. The two families, from the moment of the fall forward, the two families, the family of Elohim, whose sole purpose of initiating creation was to have sons. From the fall forward, the family of man and the family of Elohim have been estranged from one another. And it was not until the coming of our Messiah that the union was restored. That's why there's no need for another blood sacrifice to renew the family relationship or to restore the family altar. The altar of death has become the table that is the altar of life and the throne, and that throne should be demonstrated in the house of everyone who serves the King. And that throne has set times. My family would tell you, you can set a clock pretty much by the time when I say breakfast is ready and supper's ready. For those of you out here, supper's dinner for y'all. My point is that was ingrained in me. I can't get away from it, and I understand it was a divine appointment. It was a set time. It's when the family, whatever might have been happening around the house, on the farm or whatever, it didn't matter. The family stopped what we were doing. We came together, regardless of what we'd been involved in. We came together and we became echad. Are you hearing me? Shame on you for denigrating it. Shame on you for moving it out of the house. We used to have these big tables that would sit 10, 12, 14. Now you got this one, you might get two around it, and you don't want to be there very long. Hello? The word diot, knowledge. I want you to look at this Hebrew letter ayin, because we looked at the dot. The ayin pictures the eye. The eye becomes the womb or the gateway to the body. It represents the holiest of holies where the altar, the table, throne resides. And this is what's important for you to grasp. It's accentuated by the dalet's back and forth movement. Do you see that? And it indicates as the dalets moving back and forth and you're going in and out. You're going into the presence of the Most High and you're coming back out and you're going in and out. There was no carnality there. You were in the Spirit with Him. You would come out. You would be in His presence. A back and forth movement, an interaction, an intimacy that was recurring constantly. And when you see it, it meant that you had a full understanding, an intimate awareness, not only of your relationship with Him as the bride, but who He was and His provision for you. That's what this word da'at indicates. Look at that word nigdata. It's interesting because when you start breaking these things down, and again, this is an area where we get accused of all the time being Kabbalistic, or man, you just went way over there into some stuff that numerology, gematria, or gematria, whichever you're prone to say. But Hebrew's an alphanumeric language. The numbers fit, they work. The numeric value of nigdata is 527. It happens to be the same as the Hebrew in your Strong's Concordance, number 300. Aki Shakar, which is my brother the dawn, or my brother of the dawn. Isn't that interesting? Lucifer is referred to as Halel ben Shakar, Lucifer, the shining one, the son of the morning. Isaiah 14:12. Why is that important? We've just stipulated that we believe that the calendar starts at dawn. So if the calendar starts at dawn, it's set something into motion between the sole purpose. If the calendar is for intimacy between the husband and the wife, some of y'all have not had intimacy together so long you forgot what it was like. So this will be a rehearsal, okay? My point is, if the dawn was where intimacy occurred, if the dawn was when the appointment is supposed to happen, don't you think you should have rubbed the sleep out of your eyes a little early so that you can be there to present yourself in the best fashion that you could? Hello, I can remember when Brenda and I were first dating, man, I had stuff in my pockets, Dentine. How many of you remember Dentine chewing gum? Man, I would chew it by the packs. I'd stuff that, then I'd catch her. And I had cologne, I had aqua velva, and I don't know what all that stuff's old now. It was a lady killer, though, I'm telling you. And I'd slick she just said this morning, Solomon's talking about how he had his hair fixed this morning. Don't touch my hair. She said, that's just like your pawpaw. I was careful. I wanted to present. There was, for months after, I don't mind telling you, for months after we were married, I would lay in the bed just like this, not move, so that when I got up the next morning, she'd see the best side of me she could. See, I'm forward thinking. See, I know a good thing when I have it. And so if we're talking about this divine calendar in the same fashion, then we should be looking forward to the Shabbat because he's coming. We should be looking forward to Passover, Feast of Unleavened Bread, Yom HaBikurim. We should be looking forward to Shavuot, to Sukkot. If we understand that our husband is about to show up, are you too good for him or not good enough? See, this is what this calendar is about. It's about preparing ourselves for the one that's coming. My goodness, it blesses me. Let's look at this word dawn. It actually signifies first fruit. What do you think of when you hear first fruit? Bekor, Bekurim is connected. First fruit's connected with firstborn. Do you think maybe there's something to do with the dawn being the time when the firstborn should be there? Firstborns in the family, you need to be lining up to get what you're entitled to. Your inheritance comes at the dawn. Are you listening to me? I got one amen. It signifies a birthing, a being born again. That's the whole purpose. Every time we see a dawn that follows a dark night, it's a shadow picture of the death, burial, and subsequent resurrection of our Messiah. It's a shadow picture of him breaking forth out of the womb. It's a shadow picture of death no longer being able to hold the sun back. It's a shadow picture of who we are. You and I were clothed in death, walking in darkness, and in us there was no light. Every time the dawn occurs, you should put on your finery and step out into the portal and greet your King. This is what this is telling us. It signifies the pinnacle of intimacy. And ironically, Lucifer rejects this encounter. This title infers, listen to me carefully, it infers that dawn, the dawn, when we begin the dawn of the year, the dawn of every day, it's the place where intimacy, that relationship that's covenantally commingled with intimacy, is renewed by the husband and his bride. And every time we see the dawn, that's why we need to know the calendar. And I don't want to know intercalated days. I want to know when this thing's going to start, because if this is a renewal of my relationship with my husband, and I know that this table at one time kept me from having access to him, my family was cut off, I want to come to the table, to the altar throne of my King and my husband at the proper time, so that I don't miss the benevolence that he would hand down to me as his bride. Are you hearing me? Now, as a result of his actions, Lucifer is described as having fallen from heaven. And I know when you read this in the King James English, this is what you think. Oh, Lucifer was up there just bragging about what he was going to do, and he trips and he just fell from heaven. That's what I'm going to show you what the Hebrew language says about it. In fact, it was a violent, Yeshua made a statement. He says, I beheld him like a lightning. How many of you, we lived on the coast, the Gulf Coast. I love the lightning, unless you're on the receiving end of it. When the lightning is pretty close to you, it can be powerful. We've discussed the fact that the heavens house the luminaries. And every time you see the heavenly luminaries, that heavenly canopy, it's clearly demonstrating the redemption plan of Elohim. He was there. He was right where the family reunion occurs. Are you with me? How many of you have had a family reunion you wish some of them hadn't showed up? How many of you have been to family reunions and somebody got kicked out? Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't get the invitation? It says here that Lucifer is fallen from there. Fallen, if you will, as being forcibly removed. Look at that word fallen. From the Hebrew, it's the word nafal. Most of the time when it's used, it actually indicates the condition of falling. To lie down, to sink, to decay, to be cast forth, to be lost in reckoning, And it's my opinion that he was actually stricken from the books. When you go back and read in Revelation about the books being open, the books of life and all the other things that would have to gender information about who you are, he is removed from the books. There is no reckoning of him ever having access to the genealogy, the lineage of the Creator. To desert, to be considered an enemy, to fall upon another violently. This is the result. This is why he hates you to no end. He knows that he was kicked out of the place. He was disinherited. How many of you would understand that if some of y'all have been going through some inheritance stuff, and you know what it feels like when you know that the inheritance was supposed to be divvied up properly, and then somebody comes in there and kind of usurps it. If you were on the receiving end and you'd been calculating, I am going to get this, and we're going to have this. Oh, honey, we're going to be able to do this, and all of a sudden you're disinherited and kicked out. The ones that got it, I think that I'd want to get some revenge against. So this is exactly the mindset of Lucifer. This is why he has created the counterfeit. It's so that he can deceive the one that has been the beneficiary of the inheritance of the king. He cannot do nothing to Elohim. He cannot cause Elohim to be cast into the lake of fire. He thought he could throw Yeshua into the lake and he couldn't. But he knows if he can trip you up with his counterfeits, you're going to burn in oceans of liquid fire. You say, I don't believe that if you want to. It's in the book. That's why the offsprings of the fallen angels and the daughters of men are called Nephilim, the fallen ones. But there's another really interesting place in Psalm chapter 58, verse 8, that gives you a little bit more insight about the emphasis on this word, how art thou fallen. And this verse says, as a snail which melts, and it's talking about the wicked, let every one of them pass away. How are they going to pass away? Like the untimely birth of a woman, that they may not see the sun. Now, if you go back and look at this word here, the word Nephal is actually related to an untimely birth, and listen to me carefully, I'm not talking about a miscarriage, I'm talking about a deliberate abortion of the seed. Nephel. Do you hear what I just said? Lucifer had been part of the family of Elohim, and he is deliberately Nephel, deliberately aborted and cast to the ground. Can you see that? And so if you take all of the definitions that we've looked at thus far, you can conclude that Lucifer at one time held a very intimate position among the stars of heaven. In fact, he is likened unto the dawning of the day. The dawn of the day epitomizes the birth of creation. He's called Lucifer, son of the dawning. Did you hear that? He was literally the poster child of the dawn. But he engages in treasonous actions, and therefore he is intentionally, by Elohim, aborted from the place. Now I want you to listen to this. Not only he, but all of those other hosts that fell with him. And so you have to consider what follows. That phrase, nigdata, rendered to the ground, carries the same root as the phrase edzer kenegdo. And it's interesting because edzer kenegdo, nigdata, it carries with it the idea of a 360-day cyclical edzer kenegdo, a cyclical cycle, a gestational period that is associated to the one that is going to be called the helpmeet. He creates the Isha. He creates the woman to be the one whose gestational cycle would be forever dictated, controlled, corrected, administered by a 360-day calendar, and Lucifer had that opportunity. The union between Adam and Ishmael was solely established to not only regulate the set times, but those same set times were imposed to regulate the gestational cycle. What is the gestational cycle? The optimum time for ovulation. The optimum time for her to receive the virile seed and produce sons of Elohim. Did you see that? So therefore, when you consider that Lucifer is cut down to the ground, then now you understand that Lucifer's, listen, this blows me away. I'm going to show you why he hates you. Turn to your neighbor and tell him the devil hates your guts. He hates you because he knows that his seed is forever going to be cut off from the creation covenant calendar and the eternal cycle of life that it governs. Based on that, immediately upon the heels of him being aborted out of the heavens, being cut off from the generational cycles, the generational lineage, the inheritance that should have been his, now you see his purpose begins to be to inject once again his seed into creation. Did you hear that? Oh, I don't know if I believe that. Have you ever read Genesis chapter 3? Have you ever read Genesis chapter 6? Have you ever asked yourself, where did the Nephilim, the giants, come from? Have you ever asked yourself where demonic spirits arrive from? If you haven't, then Jamie will be here to answer that question for you immediately after the service. I'm telling you, there's some deep stuff, man. You have to conclude then that the intent of creation was for reproduction. The express purpose of reproducing, listen to me carefully, reproduction had to be within the confines of duplicating exactly after one's own kind. Genesis chapter 1, verse 11, the law of sowing and reaping. And so the purpose of the law of the seed producing like kind, the law of Genesis. And so the law of Genesis ensured Elohim would have an incorruptible lineage. Did you hear me? Unless Lucifer could once again insert his seed there. But it would be by choice. And I appreciated what Joy was saying earlier. It's a choice that you make. He cannot force himself on you. But if we choose to allow him to deposit his seed in us, listen to me. You can say, that's just terrible. I can't think about that kind of being intimate with the devil. All of those thoughts are seed. Did you hear me? If you do not cast those down, then they can grow. You can turn to your neighbor and tell them, you mean that devil might have impregnated me? How long have you been carrying that devil's seed around? Oh, that would never happen. Then go back and ask why there's generational curses attached to our families. Not only did the seed reproduce, it grew and it's multiplied. That's why we need to go back and chop those things off, cut them off, repent. Go back and ask, Father, where were doors opened into my family situation where I can deal with these things? Amen? Amen. There's another word that's interesting. It has that same 360 value. And you'll be familiar with its root. It's Strong's number 8145, shani or shani. And it's rendered second. And its use intends to do again, to reiterate, to renew, to repeat over and over to confirm that purpose. See, we've heard these things all of our lives and to where we're desensitized to it. The number 2 means it's something that's been duplicated from number 1. Number 1 was replicated from the 2 that came together to produce number 1. Does that make sense? Now, that's why you have in the luminaries set into the heavens, they're set there to regulate seasons, signs, days, and years. The word years there is shane, which means to replicate exactly. That's why the year has to be celebrated, observed exactly. If we don't know exactly when to mark the calendar, then our time is going to be off. These ladies that were up there this morning singing, how many of you know when you're listening that you can be out of key? But you can be in the perfect key, perfect pitch, and your timing be off. Hello? See, that's just why it's important. The set times were assigned to signs and seasons and years and must always follow the same pattern or gestational cycle in order that they produce the same lineage. If not, you have a counterfeit being introduced. And this is important to consider, especially when you go back and look at the days of creation. You know, I've looked at this probably 1,000 times. And I never stopped to think about why the days of the week were named the way they are. And I know what you think, well, I don't take much of a scholar. Day one's called day one because it's the first day. Day two's called day two because it's the second day. I don't know Hebrew, and I know that. Day three followed day two, and then day four follows day three. Do you see what I'm saying? But have you forgotten the fact that every Hebrew name, a number is a name as well? Every Hebrew name prophesies. And whenever you understand the ability to prophesy prior to the fall, especially, you were literally releasing seed. And so when I call something a name, it becomes that. Okay? So now I have to ask myself, whoa, why did he call the names of the week, the things that their numbers? Oh, we know that now. We understand it that they're numbers now, but they were originally set into motion based on what I'm sharing with you this afternoon. The evening and morning became the first day. It's the word day one, echad. It comes from the root yachad, and it's interesting because if you look at this, it carries with it intimacy. It means to unite, to make one, united together in union. The word picture that's painted is that of the yod, which pictures the seed, and then you have the ket dalet. The ket, Hebrew letter ket, indicates a wall. You're walled off from creation. But yet Abba intentionally puts a door right inside the wall called our Messiah, Yeshua. I am the door. And now you can enter and exit creation. And you can have the seed of Elohim flowing into your life. Why? Because he created from day one everything that you would have access to for the express purpose of revealing to you that if you were willing, you could step into his presence and be filled with the seed of his presence, and you could take that seed out and you could birth it wherever you happen to be domiciled at that time. That was the purpose of it. Dalet is placed in the wall to allow the union to take place. It has a numeric value, echad, of 22. It's interesting because you have 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. And Charlene was bringing this to my attention. If you take 22 and divide it by 7, you got 3.14 pi. Isn't that interesting? And then we have the second day. Oh, it's just the second day. How many of you are math scholars in here? Second day follows day one, right? Well, why would he choose to name it these names? See, now you understand that they're numbers, but at one time it was not known that they were numbers. They became numbers because of how he placed them on things. Does that make sense? So day two becomes sheni. It means to renew, to do again, and to do it in order to confirm a purpose. So day two is a duplication, a renewal of the purpose of day one. I just showed you what day one's purpose was, okay? And then you have the third day, shlishi, from shalosh, indicating the third in a continuation. That's right. The third day follows day two, right? But Parkhurst says that the original intent of shalosh was in keeping with the numbering of the other days, wherein a specific act or action was set into motion on those days. And when you see the third day, this word shlos, it actually is inferring something is being set in motion to rule and to give directions, because it seems to be that on the third day, the heavens are used to segregate from the firmament, the waters above and the waters below. And so it sets something in motion as it begins to rule accordingly. Fourth day, Revi'i, translated again as fourth day, but from the root rabah, indicating to lie down and have an intimate relationship with, and in the process to gender. Are you hearing this? This is how he names creation. Creation's all about reproducing filling the earth. That's what he told Adam and Eve. Be fruitful and multiply, replenish, subdue, and have dominion. This is all the creation mandate. He's given it to you. Fifth day, Kamashi, translated as 5, but it actually hints at setting something in array, to marshal something in battle array, but to set in order. This blew me away. Where's my daughter Joy at? To set in order to or prepare for multitudes or hosts. Elohim knew from the very beginning he was going to have many sons. Did you hear what he was planning for sons in creation. He knew that there would probably be some that wouldn't make it, some that would fall, but his intent, based on that word, Kamashi, was declaring that he was going to release into the earth his seed into a virile woman, and that woman would produce multitudes of sons. Sixth day, Shisi. The sheen root gives us to be brisk, active, and full joy of prideful joy. I hate to say this, but she was all up in my notes. That's why I'm incorporating her into this teaching. It is also the root of the Hebrew word for linen, the priestly garment. And so it seems then that the prophecy inherited in the sixth day has to do with the priestly sons who will once again be garmented in preparation for the Sabbath millennium. Guess what? You're living in the sixth day. Now it's the Melchizedek priests that are being revealed and clothed. Then we have day number 7, Shevi'i. The root implies to swear, to take an oath. And being the astute mathematician that I am, I thought, wow, he numbers them day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I said, I wonder if I just take and add 1 plus 2, and then add plus 3, plus 4, plus 5, plus 6, plus 7. It comes out to the number 28. Isn't that interesting? There's 28 letters in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. 7 words, 28 letters. Strictly an accident. 28 is also the numeric value of the phrase HaChayah, the living ones. Genesis and the numbering of the days has everything to do with the living ones. The numbering system, in my opinion, Abba set it in motion, prophesying of his intent with creation. Now I want you to listen to this. As we look further at the Hebraic definitions where the name of the day is installed, remember, names are prophecies set into motion. Each individual day conveys a message within the overall prophecy of the whole or entire creation message. So what is being said regarding the definition of the names or the numbers of these days? This, I'm telling you, you can say you just pick and choose these things, pull a rabbit out of the hat, you just trip and fell on it. I don't know what happens. I just know that I'm taking dictation when I hear it. This is what Abba spoke to me. These are the definitions. You can go back and look at it yourself. This is what it says. Elohim intended to provide a doorway into creation where he could become one Echad, day 1, with his bride. And in doing so, he would confirm his eternal plan and purpose that would be renewed Sheneh, daily, weekly, yearly. This pattern would confirm those eternal heavenly directives and would begin to set in order Shloshi, day 3, that plan. Demonstrating his intentions to be intimate, Reve'i, with his bride in order to produce seed after his kind. He had prepared for multitudes, Kamashi, of sons with brisk, active, and prideful joy. That blessed me. Do you know that he joys over you? Yeah, you convinced me. Shishi, preparing them for the Melchizedek king priestly rule. And finally, upon completion of day 6, he decides that in order for you to understand that I have determined this for you, he sevens himself. Shevi'i, literally pledging himself completely even to the point of giving himself, giving his life for those sons. He turns around and deposits himself into Messiah Yeshua. The living word becomes flesh, and he literally, Elohim literally gives himself so that you could enjoy the benefits of having intimacy with him and be called the sons of Elohim. Jamie's ministry is called Fishing for Soul, S-O-L-E, Sons of the Living Elohim. From the institution of the 24-hour day Shene to the weekly 7 days Shene, the yearly Shene, and ultimately the millennial Shene week, we see a consistent pattern whose renewal serves as a constant reminder of his redemption plan for the sons of Elohim. And it's only encapsulated in the creation covenant calendar. And so it should not be hard for us to understand that the creation calendar regulates the divine appointments. These are intimate marital encounters where Elohim chooses to manifest himself with his bride. And listen to me carefully. I want you to understand why. Have you ever asked yourself, why am I hearing this? Am I the only one? How many of you feel like you're part of the bride of Elohim? Because I'm going to show you why you're hearing this. These appointments administering his calendar are placed under the auspice of the administration of the same bride. And your highest calling was and is to oversee their proper calculation and, listen to me, their compulsory attendance. If not, how can you remain in that custodial office? Hello? Did it go? I can't hear it. I didn't hear any shouting then. We're to administer the calendar. And it's a compulsory attendance. Turn to your neighbor and tell them, I told you you're supposed to be there. Let's look at this law of first reference. And it can be found in Eden, the garden of appointed times. Are y'all getting anything out of this? I got 32 minutes. I am not going to be able to finish this. From our previous teachings, we've concluded that the Garden of Eden was an extremely unique place. Without doubt, it served as the original pattern for the tabernacle, Holy of Holies, the inner sanctuary, the place upon the earth where Elohim would manifest himself at those set times. So let's look at that Gan Eden. You've probably heard it before. The definition of Gan indicates an enclosure, a private fenced-off place within inside the boundaries of Eden proper. It carries with it the idea of being a shield. This blows me away. I'd never seen this, and I've looked at it hundreds of times. The garden was a shield. The garden was literally an instrument of protection. The garden was a covering place, the borders of which were to be maintained, guarded, watched over by Adam himself. And incidentally, this place would also have to reflect the message written in the stellar luminaries, the heavens. And so figuratively and practically, the garden's purpose was solely for the bride. Did you hear that? I taught them a series years and years ago, Back to Eden. And it is my belief that you and I are going to see the heavens and the earth renovated. And we will see Eden restored, in my opinion, to a far better way than it was originally intended. And you and I, along with our groom, will once again occupy Eden. You won't be sitting on a cloud fiddling for the rest of eternity. Okay? And so this seems to infer that the purpose of the Garden of Eden and its role as the makom, or the place of divine appointment, divine appearance, literally was to be a means of protection. You want to know why the calendar is important? The creation covenant calendar serves as a covering, a safe house, if you will, for the bride. I don't know if I believe that. That's a stretch. Well, let me just read to you this verse in Proverbs 18:10. And I'm going to ask you, how many of you looked at my notes? Thank you. Appreciate that. Proverbs 18:10. The name of Yahweh is a strong tower. Do you see that? the name of Yahweh is a strong tower. The righteous runneth into it and is safe. The word name is the word Shem. Remember, we've been talking about names, the numbers being names. A Shem is a prophetic declaration representing a person, place, or a thing. But it's also interesting because it is the single form, although you don't see it written this way, it's the single form of Shemayim, the heavens. And so the heavens are all about the name. You can't separate the heavens from the name. Do you see that? It indicates placement. The setting upon or setting to something. In other words, when you see what was written in the stellar heavens, the name is emblazoned and imparted there. And Adam is placed in the garden, and Adam has that same name as a canopy that's over him. I believe it's his banner over us is love. I believe that canopy was over him as a source of protection, just like the name becomes a strong tower and the righteous run into it. You see that? Okay? Adam was placed in the Garden of Eden to administer the name or names, Shemayim. The name is a strong Migdal, tower. A tower is a pulpit, a raised bed. If you look at the root of it, Migdal, it hints at something being twisted together in union like the DNA helix. Are you hearing me? And so this verse that I just read to you out of Proverbs is adding emphasis to the whole mindset that's being cultivated in this creation account, where Adam is given every opportunity to be twisted into or united into the DNA of Elohim at every divine appointment. Have you ever thought about that we have been admonished to put on him? Don't be conformed to the world, but be transformed. Not walking according to the law of death that works in this fleshly body, but the law of the Spirit of life. Every time, see, these bodies are wasting away. It's my opinion, until such time as he manifests himself finally in the earth and we get a new supernatural glorified body, that the moment that you come together in these set times, your DNA can be charged again, sort of like an electric vehicle going to a charging station. Well, drive that car until you run out of miles on it. And then start finding a charging station. Say amen? Oh, we don't, this calendar is not important. How long have you been driving this thing? You're running out of miles. Are you getting what I'm trying to explain to you? Eden, translated as delight. But the root tells us that this delight was cultivated or accessed. In other words, you just didn't have delight. It was a place where delight was there. Delight was being cultivated, and you could access that delight. Sort of like y'all were talking about earlier today, and cultivating joy whenever you didn't feel like joy, being joyful. Happiness is circumstantial. Joy is something that's supernatural and spiritual. You can cultivate joy. Joy is there for you to access it if you want it. So was this Gan Eden. And it's interesting because if you look at the word Eden, ayin dalet nun, the ayin dalet root indicates time, as well as you being a witness to that. And then you have that suffix nun carries with it the idea of seed being planted, and it indicates faithfulness and the reward of faithfulness. Did you hear that? Eden was a place of faithfulness, and Eden would be the reward of those who have been faithful. Let's look at the two words together, Gan Eden. This is based on the definitions that I've given you. Gan Eden was a fenced-off, fortified place for the bride, where she is protected and prepared so that she could administer and be the caretaker of the personal, intimate benefit package contained in the creation covenant calendar of intimate times. Her faithfulness in attending will result in the reward of receiving the seed of Elohim, listen to me carefully, that she would become witness of. She is delighted to run to this exalted bed of intimacy where she will be twisted together, made echad with her husband. This is her safe place. When all of the world, if you don't mind me using this term, goes to hell in the handbasket, and all of the things that we see coming this direction in the future, if you will keep the divine appointments, it will become your safe haven. It will become your tower that you can run to in times of trouble. In particular, the one that is duplicated, Sinead, more often than the other, and that is the Shabbat. Doesn't it seem like there's a consistent theme to these creation chapters? Is it just me? The name is a strong tower. You know, the first time that you actually see the word tower or Migdal mentioned is in Genesis 11, verse 4, where Nimrod built was a tower. Isn't that interesting? Nimrod's building a place where a name would be attached, where somebody could go into this tower and have access to a safe haven. Are you following me? Now, the purpose was so that they could worship the same stars who individually and collectively were declaring the name. But in this case, Nimrod is actually functioning in his role as servant to Lucifer, the counterfeit. Nimrod is only found following the pattern of the serpent or the Nakash, the Lucifer who originally sought to usurp the role of king and priest upon the earth, rather than the Adam who was created to function in the place of Yahweh. Now, I want to take you down a little side note here. The numeric value of the word Nimrod, and did you know, I don't know if you pay attention to current events, but did you know for the last couple of years they have been saying that they have found Nimrod's body? And that they're trying to extract DNA from Nimrod's body so that they could clone him? Isn't that odd? Did you know what the numeric value of Nimrod is? 294, which is ironically the same as the word Melchizedek. Do you see that the powers that be are actually trying to clone the Melchizedek priesthood? That's what it's implying. And so I'm going to ask, was Nimrod attempted to circumvent the appointed times and insert himself in the priestly role as their administrator? Remember, that's the same creational office that Adam was supposed to function in as the timekeeper in Eden, but Adam was also known as the tiller of the ground. In Genesis chapter 2, verse 5 and 8, look at his responsibility to till. The word for till here is the word avad, and it means to work, to serve, to keep, to observe religious worship. But it carries with it the idea of priestly service. And then when you see the word ground, the ground is first called ha'adama, the ground. It has the same numeric value, 55, as the phrase bagan, the garden. And also, incidentally, as the phrase halak, to walk together and be conversant with. And one more, chala, which is a euphemistic term for the bride. When Yeshua says, while he's being executed, he makes a statement, it is finished. He's actually making a reference regarding his work as the intermediary or the redemptive role for the chala, the bride. I finished this for her. And so the connections here are far too visible to deny the purpose of Gan Eden, much less the role of Adam, who was to till the ground, the ha'adama, of the Bagan, all while preparing to walk halak in union with Yod-Heh Vav-Heh as the bride, Chala, the finished one. I've given you the genuine. Let's look at the counterfeiter. Lucifer is without doubt the preeminent counterfeiter. He attempts to circumvent the creation covenant calendar and the patterns of intimacy where the sons of Elohim are to be produced. Creation is groaning, waiting for the manifestation of the sons of Elohim. Did you know that? Go back and read Romans chapter 8. He also is able to produce counterfeit sons. Lucifer can produce counterfeit sons. And those are going and have engaged throughout history in the same Luciferian acts throughout the ages that are used to this day to continue to propagate their lineage. You see this in Nimrod. But was Nimrod the first man to do so? No. And I use that term man lightly because I don't believe he was a man in the truest sense of the word that you and I understand it today. And so I want you to look with me in Genesis chapter 4, verse 1. And Adam knew Havah, his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from Yahweh. I want to call your attention to this phrase, gotten a man from Yahweh. Now, I want you to just be able to think outside your box, okay? The word gotten there is where his name comes from, Chana, to acquire, to create. But I want you to notice this word from. It's going to be familiar to you. You've seen it a million times. We had a good friend that wrote an entire series of books regarding this two-letter root, the Aleph Tav. And you've seen the derivative of this word countless times, but it's my opinion that where it's used right here, there's a deliberate, intended insertion of a mistranslation so that you'll see the counterfeit. Because she says, I have gotten me a man from Elohim. It sounds as if that she's bragging about, like Mary would have bragged, I have gotten a Yeshua from Elohim, right? Come on, help me out. It says in Genesis 1:1, you see the Aleph and Tav, where the Aleph Tav shows a direct object. But in Genesis 4:1, this is the first time the usage of this word is seen. And even though it's written the same, it's actually a contracted form of Anna. And it indicates to encounter or to approach someone in order to seek an occasion to quarrel. So now it puts it in a little bit different light. I have gotten a man so that I can start a quarrel with Elohim. But it also conveys the idea of lamenting or mourning over the effects of that quarrel. And it's my intent, sharing this with you, that this was a deliberate mistranslation of the Aleph and Tav. So what does this literally mean? It's my opinion that Cain was the firstborn of the Nakash, the serpent seed commingled with that of the woman. And you say, well, it wasn't physical, it could have been spiritual. It is my opinion prior to the fall that all they had to do was speak and seed was released. Okay? Cain kills his brother over an argument regarding Passover. How do you know that? Scholars all agree that the phrase in Genesis 4:3, and in the process of time it came to pass, that it's associated with the holy convocations. Now, this is just me, because I can't prove this, but I found it interesting that Cain appears first. It's my opinion that what happens here in Genesis chapter 4 is a dress rehearsal of the soon-to-be, 2,000 years later, execution of our Messiah. It's my opinion that Cain appears at a time that would have been determined by the sliver of the moon, 12-hour offset from a dawn day calendar, when Abel would have brought his offering, which would have been a blood sacrifice. Are you hearing me? It's a fact that Lucifer uses the phases of the moon, and this may hurt, but there are a lot of Enochian and Zadok calendar keepers that also use, along with the vernal equinox, they use the stages of the moon in their calculations as well. Now, think about this. We're told that Yahweh had respect unto Abel's offering. The word respect there, sha'ah, is usually translated as to regard or to behold. But if you go back and see what Parkhurst says, he actually hints that the word means to set something on fire, which would be the natural pattern whenever an offering was made, a sacrifice was made on offering, Yahweh would have fire come down and consume it. You follow me? But it's interesting, Cain is told, if you do well, shall you not also be accepted? Look at that phrase, doest well, written in Hebrew, yatav. The root of yatav is tov. To properly understand what tov means, the word tov means good, right? To understand, you need to go back and look at the first time that word tov is used, and it's used to describe when light was separated from darkness, and it's called both tov and yom, good and day. And so if you understand the original intent of the word tov, it is a noun that's applied only when the object it's assigned to functions in its original intended creation. So Cain's being told, don't you understand if you had functioned the way that creation had originally been intended, you would have had fire fall down on your offering as well? Are you hearing me? Could Elohim right here, Yahweh, have been schooling Cain regarding the days beginning at dawn in the festival calendar? You know the result. Cain kills Abel. Now I want to move carefully here because this might catch some of you off guard. The text declares, and she bore again. The phrase, and she again, is from the root of the word yasaf. When I saw that, I almost came out of my seat. As soon as you see yasaf, you think about Joseph, right? You see what's happening? I told you this whole pattern is about the coming of our Messiah. And Messiah ben Yosef is the shadow picture here. And it's dealing with the one who would be born out of her loins, to add, to increase, to do again. The two-letter root stem that's being referred to when it says, and she bare again, is the samic pay, the saf. And it actually indicates a concave or hollow place or a basin that was used at the threshold where an altar was to catch the blood. She's prophesying this over her son. She knows what her son is destined to do. Shepherd John touched on it last week, and it just completely blew me away because I'm looking at these same things. He was designed, he was born, if you will, to be a shadow picture of the coming Messiah. There's no doubt in my mind that Adam and Chava knew the redemption plan, the coming Messiah, and they would have taught both Abel and Cain as well. Are you hearing me? This root is also the root of the name given to Joseph. Now, if you look at this samic pay, it doesn't occur as a verb, but all Hebrew words express action. And so this word saf indicates to undermine something, something that withers and decays. And again, if you listen to what Shepherd John shared last week, then you know that the word hevel, now, again, we don't grasp this. We name kids today, children today, anything you can think of. And we wonder why the world is directed this way. But she names him Hevel. It carries the idea, and he touched on this last week. Man, I almost got saved listening to this. It literally means to exhale. I want you to think about this. Hevel is the only son of Adam. He has a residue in him. He's the only one that has the residue in him of that what once was eternal life. The original nephesh that was breathed into Adam. He's the only one. Are you listening to me? James 4 verse 14 talks about the vapor, the breath that just appears and vanishes. It also alludes to a shadow. It's my opinion that Abel would have marked the shadow prior to observing this Passover. And then when you look at Hevel or Chava naming him after she has this encounter with the Nakash, where it undermines the creation covenant calendar, and then you see the result of that, they lose the intimacy with the voice that walks in the dawn of the day in the following part of chapter 3, then you have to ask yourself, what's happening? It's my opinion that Abel was, as I said, the son of Adam, Cain the son of the Nakash. And when I shared this, I've shared it before, and people say, there's no way. But did you know that there is a term, I have it for you right here, heteropaternal superfecundation. It is where a woman can have twins in the womb from two different fathers. Okay? Just throwing that out for you. And so you have Eve lamenting that she has initiated a quarrel with Yahweh by bearing Cain. Eve's no dummy. She had an intellect superior to ours. and she would have known the prophetic implications of her childbearing. If you go back and look at Genesis chapter 3, where it's talking about verse 15 forward, the war between her seed and the seed of the serpent. She knows that one from her womb at some point is going to be the Melchizedek Messiah, who will restore the kingdom and the creation covenant calendar that administers it. Simultaneously, she also knows that there is a war that has been set in motion with the seed of the serpent. Is it possible? She names him Hevel with the mindset that he is going to die and be resurrected again. Abel is to Yosef, Joseph. Abel was one whose blood was shed upon the threshold. He epitomizes the eternal life. Listen to me. This eternal life, the eternal breath that had once been theirs, but now he exhales. Listen to me. Once he exhaled it, there's no source left for him. He exhaled the last remnant of the breath of lives that had been breathed into his Father. And he could never be resuscitated again until our Messiah came. His parents would never inhale the life again while they were in the fleshly body. This is her thought. This is why she names him Hevel. Cain also knew this prophecy. Just like Joseph's brothers, it's my opinion that he was angered and frustrated at Abel because he felt like Abel was flaunting the priesthood in front of him. I'm convinced that Abel was killed with Cain daring him to resurrect himself from the dead in order to fulfill that messianic Melchizedek prophecy. Just like Joseph and later Yeshua. That's why Abel's blood cries from the ground and Yeshua's blood speaks of better things than that of Abel's. The counterfeit legacy continues. Can y'all hold on? After Abel is murdered, Cain is exiled into the land of Nod. It's translated as wandering, as, a vagrant. But the original root hints at noddling at something like you say something, it's utter contempt. Just noddling at you in utter contempt. The motion of babbling lips in utter contempt at something that you've done or set into motion. It also indicates, this word nod, that he was removed on account of a legal uncleanness and had to be exiled, which again would have been the reward given to an adulteress. And so what happens here from Cain forward is it seems that Cain launches a historically recorded effort in his nidah, adulterous, unclean state, to malign and slander with contempt the creation covenant calendar that would be associated with the messianic seed line that he thinks that he's now eradicated. And you're probably asking, how and why would I say that? Well, the reason I'm sharing this with you is because there are two different genealogies mentioned in Genesis chapter 4 and Genesis chapter 5. You have a counterfeit and you have the genuine. Let's look at Cain's firstborn. If you back up, you see that they have to follow the redemption plan of the creation covenant calendar, or it has to be an abject counterfeit. There's no right in the fence here. You can see the lineage. I'm going to skip the names. Those of you who get the notes, they're there. We can't look too deeply because of time into those two distinct columns, but it has to do, listen to me carefully. It has to do with the specific timing of the flood in Noah's day. Are you with me? And from our vantage point, no other calendar except the creation covenant calendars of 360 days can fit the dates of the flood and all the other dates given when it was the second month, 17th day of the month, there at Mount Ararat, and all those other dates, including the born dates given in the flood. And if that's the case, if one date can be proven, I submit to you that all of the others would have to, by right of association, would have to be able to be proven as well. But if you look at from the counterfeit perspective, There's always a different way to calculate the times, and you can see that in chapter 4. But let me give you a compilation of the names in chapter 5. Can y'all hold on? I got 5 minutes. Man, Adam, appointed, Seth, mortal, Enosh, Sarah, Kenan, the blessed God, Mahalalel, shall come down, Yered, teaching Enoch, his death shall bring Methuselah, the despairing, Lamech, rest Noah. The prophecy there in Genesis chapter 5 is man is given mortal sorrow. The blessed Yahweh shall come down discipling, his death shall bring the despairing comfort and rest. Now that's what's inherent in the names given in chapter 5. Chapter 4, Enoch, teaching. Irad, the King James calls it the fleet or a wild ass, but its root actually means to isolate, to keep apart, and to segregate oneself. Mehu Yahel, smitten by Elohim, from a root meaning to wipe out, blot out, or exterminate. Methusael, who is Elohim. The mem tav root is said to indicate a man, but it's also the root of the word death, mut. Lamech, translated powerful, despairing. The King James isn't sure of this meaning, but the mem dalet root hints at to measure, as in dimensions of time, to measure exactly, but it also connotes a garment. And so this lineage right here that you read in chapter 4 is propagated by the teacher who is also called Enoch, the son of Cain. I want you to pay attention because the 364-day calendar is attributed to the grandfather of Noah, the chapter 5, Enoch, and I submit to you that I don't believe it. I believe it's hogwash. And I'm going to show you. The son of Cain, Enoch, teaches to isolate, to keep apart, and exterminate the dimensions of the set times associated with the priestly garment, which is none other than the Melchizedek priesthood and the creation covenant calendar of 360 days. How can I say that? Because it's substantiated in Genesis 4, verse 26, which tells us, then men began to call upon the name of Yahweh. How many of you have ever read that? If you go in your different translations, every one of them will say that men began to worship Yahweh. And that's not what the Hebrew text says. That's why you need to take this back to the Hebrew. What does it really say? Okay? Then, the word az, at that time, in that case. This is an adverb. And I found it interesting. It's seen in Ruth chapter 2, verse 7 as a reference, ma'az haboker, to the dawning of the day. Isn't that odd? And the aleph zadi root could also just have easily have been rendered the ayin zadi root, as in the strong one, Boaz, Ruth and Boaz, or the male goat or ram for slaughter. And the word began, men began. That word is halal. It means to profane, defile, and pollute, to desecrate something sexually. And I submit to you that this lineage depicted in chapter 4 of Genesis cannot profane Yahweh's name without a profanation of his character or his calendar that cites the expectations of intimacy, and also that would have to require defaming the covenantal relationship acquired or accessed by that intimacy. In effect, amounting to adultery, whether it's spiritual or otherwise. And if you go back and look at the premise of the creation calendar, it was and is to this day specifically to invite you to attend the divine intimate appointments and give you the opportunity to reproduce after Elohim's kind in order so that you could propagate his name. When you see that a name is attached to an individual, it was to prophesy, to convey upon them or that entity what they were to do in their lives. Adam also understood this. And so Adam understood that when Abel dies, Cain is not his son. Go back and find when it gives you the lineage of Adam, Cain's not mentioned. So he has a second son. Give me just a few minutes and I'll finish this. At this critical juncture in history, you have the introduction of Adam's new son. He becomes the firstborn of Adam. His name is Set, Shin Tav. It's translated as compensation or substitute, but it's actually another way of saying to produce another of exact kind, a shene or exact duplicate. And you see it first used in Genesis 1:1, Bereshit. Adam is rehearsing what happened in Genesis chapter 1, and he's following that pattern. The counterfeit lineage of Cain, through his firstborn Enoch, also known as the teacher, what is he known for teaching? He's teaching a counterfeit. He launches a campaign to defile and pervert the same lineage of Elohim, the strong one, the realm who comes, and the calendar of creation, Me'az Haboker. And it literally could read, the strong one who comes at the dawn. Remember Genesis chapter 3. This Enoch was a counterfeit of Noah's grandfather, Enoch. One had to be genuine, the other's counterfeit. And it's my opinion, once again, that this initiated an insertion of the fallen one seed, of whom Cain and subsequently his son Enoch in chapter 4 would have both consorted with. The book of Enoch, though it touts its author as being righteous, isn't this interesting? You have to ask yourself why. It actually depicts Enoch as an intercessor on behalf of the watchers. Why would he go in and petition Yahweh to have mercy on the Nephilim, who were the ones that killed off all of the seed? What was it that caused him to have some kind of evident affection for the Nephilim? And they say that he does supposedly pronounce judgment upon them at his return. But I'm here to tell you that I believe that he perpetuated the counterfeit calendar of his father Cain, and his grandfather, the Nakash, and his relatives who were called the Watchers, not the Creation Covenant calendar. And I don't believe that this Enoch in chapter 4 is the same as the grandfather of Noah in Genesis chapter 5, 18 through 24, who walked in agreement with Yahweh and wrote, accordingly to what a lot of people say, this popular 364-day counterfeit book. Hope that you've enjoyed this. There's some other things, but you need to go back and get them. By the way, let me just insert this. If this is not true, why would Enoch in chapter 5 name Methuselah and specifically giving you an exact date when the flood would come if he didn't know the calendar? Amen? Hope you've enjoyed this teaching. Thank you for listening.
Hallelujah. What a powerful, powerful revelation.